Hey friends, it's Sophie, and today I'm going to be doing my first IGTV video. So I'm very excited because today I'm going to be sharing with you how I create my mixed media photos for my Instagram account. So if you've looked at my feed a little bit, you'll notice that my feed is a combination of my illustrations, but also just regular pictures, and a lot of them are pictures of my workspace. People seem to really like those pictures, and I love taking those pictures, so I take a lot of photos of my workspace. I'm about to be moving into a new one, and I'm going to be taking pictures there. And usually with those pictures, the main thing that I do to edit them is I brighten them up a little bit, so I increase the exposure quite a bit. I also love the Tezza app for editing my photos, so if you ever need an app for that, I highly recommend the Tezza app. But a lot of my photos you'll see have these added decorative elements on them with the mixed media art. So I like to paint over or digitally paint over my pictures using Procreate, which is the app that I'm in right now. I'm going to walk you through how I do all of this, and I'm going to start out picking a photo. I have so many photos on my camera roll of my workspace, but I think we're going to do this one. As you can see, this isn't a perfect square, but we can fit that later. So the first thing you want to do is add a second layer, because I've made this mistake so many times, but if you draw directly on top of the picture, like, let's see, if you do this, and you're drawing over the picture, if you need to erase the line that you made and you drew right over the picture, when you go to erase, it's going to erase the whole image, unfortunately. So making sure that you have that second layer there is key, because then if you draw something you want to erase, you can erase it. It's not going to erase the whole photo. Thank the Lord. So, because usually I make some sort of move on here that I'm like, oh, I didn't mean to do that, and I need to go back through and erase it later. But what you're looking at right here are the imported brushes that I have. These brushes are all Brush and Barley. It's Audrey Bailey's account, and it's just, her brand is incredible. I love her Procreate brushes. They all have a lot of different textures. So there's just a lot to play with here, because each brush is really different. You can increase the size of the brushes, you can decrease it, obviously, and you kind of just get a different effect depending on the width sometimes of the brush. Like when I expanded this brush, it's really thick in the middle, but with this you can kind of see in between a little bit there. So it really just kind of depends on how you want to use each brush. My go-to in her pack is the Luke brush and the Fig brush. The Luke brush is really easy for writing. It's great for calligraphy and hand lettering. But if you want some more texture in there, like, she has a lot of different options for that. So highly recommend, if you haven't bought a brush pack yet, you need to do it, because in my opinion, the brushes that come on Procreate on their own are not that great. I mean, there are some gems on here, but compared to what other artists are out there making, like, I just think you need to buy a brush pack, and also you get to support other artists, so that's great too. So I'm going to start out with something a little more textured with the Rosemary brush, and as you can see here, I have my color palette ready to go. I have all these colors as the default color palette because they're my branding colors. So having these set colors really helps with creating a cohesive feed, because then I can just pull right from colors that I usually use, so that I know when I go to put this in my preview app to see how photos would look, I know that it's going to fit in somewhere, because it has that combination of common colors throughout my feed. And then I'm also working on a second palette right now, because I'm noticing that I'm starting to get into the cooler colors, and the cooler colors can be a great contrast to the warm sunset colors that I have going on in my main branding palette. But I've been obsessed with this color for a few days now, so I'm starting to add that into my feed a little bit more. So I think I'm going to start out though with this mustard color, also one of my favorites, and I just usually kind of start out on the border here, and I'll just kind of make little lines like that. I love just like little swirly lines on the sides to start out with. And then I like to kind of go back in between. I'll decrease the size of the brush. And it's just fun to play around with. And to me, I kind of find out what I like as I go. I don't necessarily come into it knowing what I'm going to put on the page. I just kind of figure it out as I go. And as I just see what I like. Sometimes I like to outline objects. So if I do that, I'll take a bright white color and I'll go back down here and use the Luke brush and make sure that it's a smaller size. And then I start outlining the object. And if you're like me and you have a very wobbly hand, if you don't know about this feature, Procreate will straighten your lines for you. And like when I found out about this, that was a lifesaver to me because I kind of suck at keeping my lines straight at times, which I'm sure as I do more videos like this, you will find out. So, and also something to help with keeping your lines straight, if you don't know, is you can streamline your lines. So if you take it down to like no streamlining, like that's a very, very like out of control line. But as you see, if you increase the streamlining, it's a lot straighter, it flows a lot better. So a lot of my brushes, I just put it all the way up to 100% because I know that my hand is a little wobbly. But anyways, the tip I was going to give you about Procreate, if you draw a line and hold it there, it kind of straightens the line out for you. So you could draw a line like this, and if you hold it, it'll straighten the line, and you can kind of do whatever you want with it, put it wherever you want. You can draw a box with it. And also if you want to draw a circle, for example, like that is not a perfect circle, but you can hold it and then edit the shape and then choose a circle. And then you can move these points around however you want to make it. So I don't know, for some of you out there that are experienced with Procreate, that may be kind of like duh, like I know how to do that, but I don't know. When I first started doing this, I didn't know any of those things. So when I realized that that was a thing, it was like a game changer for me. So that's why I'm telling you, because it was really helpful to me, and it still is. Also, one thing that I like to do with these mixed media illustrations is I like to add some type of writing on top. I really like photos that kind of look busier, I guess. I'm not really sure why, but I like it when I look at my feed and it looks like there's a lot going on. So I find that adding writing kind of adds more to the photo, makes it a little more interesting. I really like to add arrows, and especially if you are selling something, which I assume if you're coming to this, maybe you are, it's kind of just a way to draw more attention to whatever is the focal point of the picture. I also have a couple of photos like this that were kind of labeled. I was labeling things on my workspace and people really seemed to like that. I think it's just kind of fun to show people like behind the scenes. That's part of why I really love taking pictures of my workspace and showing that to people, because I think people just like to see what everybody's working with. And I know I like to see that on other people's pages, but again, I'm just kind of going through choosing objects to outline. There's also a ton of times when I'm doing these things and I outline something or I draw something and then in a minute I'm like, I hate this, why did I do that? But that's what the back button is for, or the undo button, or whatever you want to call it. So I'm just outlining this little canvas that I have here. But I'm getting ready to move into a new space and I cannot wait to set up my apartment there and to set up my new workspace. So I'm also going to add in, a different color, maybe another, let's do a blue. So another safe option for doing these mixed media photos is I like to add some dots. So I kind of have my go-to moves when I do photos like this. We've got the squiggly lines and then we've got the dots. And if you'll notice, like, I'm big into symmetry, so, and that's just me personally. So I usually kind of start out, like my base point with all of these is starting out with lines here, lines there. Like if I'm doing that up here, then I'm going to do it down there. Dots here, and then I'm going to put them there. You totally don't have to do that, but to me it just looks more like visually appealing when I do that. And then I can also go underneath those dots. If I add another layer underneath what I just created, I can add some dimension there with a lighter color. It almost looks like a blue, like leopard print, I guess, with that kind of a pattern, which is kind of dope. I like that. It's different, but you know, I have not done that actually before, but there's something new every time. So that's kind of fun. You can just be creative every time that you do these. And I just try to stick to my main color palette because that way all my photos look cohesive on my feed. Having a cohesive feed is just like very important to me, and I think it just kind of makes your feed look more appealing if you do have that kind of uniform look with your colors. And so just creating a palette based on the colors that you want to have on your feed is a really easy way to make sure that you're being cohesive about all that. So that is one example of how I do that, and I have tons more. This is going to be a photo that I'm going to be putting on my website, and this is just like a ton of lines, and as you can see, I kind of had that symmetry there with, I did it up in that corner, so I did it down there. And then same thing here. I did the lines there, so I did them there. And I actually just kept the dots there and then added some stars. That's another thing I want to add to that photo, stars. I mean, maybe that's basic, but I love adding some little doodled stars. I just think it's a really easy way to kind of finish it off. That's too thin. It's just an easy way to kind of finish off your photo and make it cute, make it pop. And you don't really have to add a ton. Just kind of enough here and there. So yeah, so that is how I would do that. And then I'll just save it to my iPad. And this is an iPad Pro. And this is the smaller version. Like you can get, I can't remember exactly the dimensions of this, but you can get the bigger size, and I got the smaller one because it was cheaper, because these iPads are really expensive. And then I'm using the second generation Apple Pencil. If you're curious, if you're looking to invest in an iPad, just go ahead and get the new stuff. I've heard that the second generation pencil is the best. I haven't personally used the first generation pencil, but you know. So this is the final product. This is the finished drawing. And yeah, this would just be ready to go to be put on my feed, and this is how I do that. So if you end up trying out this technique, tag me in the photo so I can see, and hopefully this was helpful to you guys, and I'll talk to you later.